We had a CNN segment. This is like Abby Phillips' panel show. And they keep inviting the D-list conservatives. They have that smug asshole Scott Jennings, who just has the most punchable face in the world right up there with Ted Cruz. And he just sits there and says, are you going to let them get away with this? Are you going to let them say Trump is in the Epstein files? And Abby Phillips is like, oh, shut the fuck up. She hates him, I can tell, but I guess CNN is just forcing her to continue to have him on.
Yeah.
But so they invited on this new D-list conservative commentator, Brianna Lyman, okay? And they're talking here about election fraud. And because you know how Trump seized the ballots in Fulton County, which is like totally insane. And of course, they're setting up some attempt to steal the midterms in 2028. Well, here you have the conservative make the argument like, no, seriously, election fraud is like a huge problem. And she just runs into an absolute brick wall. Take a look at this.
What are we to make of all of this?
Well, I think given that under Joe Biden we had millions of illegal aliens come in, it's definitely fair to be worried that there could be non-citizens voting. We know that non-citizen voting does happen, even if it is rare, according to some on the left.
How frequent is it?
Well, if you want a list of it, I actually have some for you. Hold on one second.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, like actual numbers.
Yeah,
You
no,
have to get to page 6 or 7
Or
to
people.
find them.
I know.
I actually wanted to have a lot of quotes for you guys. All right, here we go. So a Georgia audit found 20 non-citizens registered to vote. 9 of them ended up voting in a previous election.
20?
Yeah,
9.
let me finish. In Michigan,
After how many years?
you know, it's funny when you guys mock small amounts, but let's remember that Marionette Miller Meeks won her 2020 election by 6 votes.
Okay.
Imagine if there were 6
Were they
fraudulent
6
votes.
undocumented immigrants?
No,
they weren't.
My point is that some elections are decided quite literally on the margins,
Sure.
and every vote counts.
But not a single presidential election has been decided by a margin of
can I finish my point? Can I
voters.
finish my point? That doesn't, just because it doesn't impact a presidential election, does not mean that it is not worthy of attention.
What is the percentage of fraudulent non-citizen voting in America?
I don't have the percentage, but I have more examples if you
percentage
guys
would you
wouldn't cut me off. Let me just finish. Exactly.
I don't know if
Hold
it
on a
exists.
second. Hold on a second. 41 non-citizens cast a
maybe
ballot in North
higher
Carolina in
than 1 out of 1
2016.
million.
Okay,
1,500
41.
foreigners registered to vote in California by the state DMV. They were not citizens in 2018.
Oh, did they? And
Did they vote?
were
Did
they
they vote?
caught?
Did they vote?
Actually,
Did they vote?
it doesn't
They're
matter
just
if
registered to vote. That doesn't
Registering
mean they
vote as a
vote.
non-citizen is legal.
So-
According
I
to
know, but
18
they
U.S.
didn't
Code,
vote.
Section 1015, subsection F says that anyone who knowingly makes a false statement when
Hold
registering
on,
to
but
vote
here's the
can
thing.
get jail time.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I wanted you to go through it because I think it illustrates in and of itself how actually incredibly rare this is. And even when, the Heritage Foundation went looking for non-citizens voting, over the course of, 10 plus years, they found 77 cases, actually more than 10 years, about 24 years, they found 77 instances of non-voters voting. And they went looking, okay? So listen, if this were about people, non-citizens voting, maybe that's the case, then please help me explain why Trump is still obsessed with Georgia, where he was looking for 11,000 votes, where Georgia, they've got voter ID, they've got tough voting laws. Why is he saying that Georgia was a fraudulent state?
The thing that's crazy to me is that, like, we have Trump trying to steal the 2020 election, like so much evidence of it. The fake elector slate, for example. You have Jack Smith literally saying, if I was able to finish my job, he would be in jail. He would be in jail. There's no way around it. So here you have a former president, current president of the United States, tried to steal an election. She doesn't bring that up at all, but we found 77 people who voted illegally over the course of 24 years. You're right. So this is crazy. We need to do something about this. And of course, the irony is it's projection. They're using that argument to then allow them to try to steal the next election by using, hey, send in ICE, as sloppy Steve Bannon is saying now. We're going to send in ICE at the polling places, or seize the ballots in Fulton County and, get in there and learn how the voting machines work so we can fuck around with it after the fact. So it's always the classic projection thing where it's like, we're going to accuse you of what we're guilty of, and we're going to then use that to set ourselves up to commit the crime.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's it exactly. So people need to understand all of this revisiting of 2020 is not really about 2020.
Correct.
It's about them being able to say, see, we were right, it was rigged and stolen, and that's why we need to take over the voting in Fulton County, Georgia, which is Atlanta, in Philadelphia, in Detroit, in any other, usually majority black, heavily Democratic area. And you've got Tulsi Gabbard out doing whatever the hell she's doing, like going down to Puerto Rico. Did you see that?
Yes.
Going down to Puerto Rico
and taking
on
the voting
some
machines.
Theory that there was some Puerto Rico Venezuela connection. And I fully buy the idea that they are going to offer Maduro some sort of a plea deal
For him to lie.
in exchange for him lying and saying, oh yeah, we totally rigged that election for Joe Biden. You caught us. You're right. And again, what would they use that for? A pretext to say that's why we've got to send in all of these ICE agents to protect the polls and make sure that it's free and fair, which will, the goal obviously being there to intimidate anyone who is black and brown from showing up to the polls to vote.
And by the way, ballot purging and ballot spoiling too is a big thing. All these pictures, ICE is going around taking pictures of all the observers, and there's already been reporting that they're using that to kick you off the voter rolls if you're one of the observers, knowing that they're more likely to vote Democrat than they are to vote Republican.
Yeah, I mean, first off, utterly humiliating to go on a panel like that, literally like prepared with numbers, and those are the numbers that you're able to whip out.
You think that's such an own.
She said there were like 20 who had like registered in the previous election and 9 like maybe attempted to vote, didn't even necessarily successfily vote in the election. And it's like, what are you talking about? Utterly humiliating. But to your point, Crystal, it's terrifying to think, because I'm from Fulton County in Georgia. If they hijack just Fulton County, they don't even need to do the whole state, and they're able to manipulate it, or even just like Bannon was saying, like you send ICE to the polling locations, and that has a suppressive effect because people don't, if you're Hispanic looking, you might get racially profiled, they might take you away. Some people might stay home from that. If you can ensure that Fulton County doesn't show out in the way that it did in 2020, Georgia's no longer a swing state.
Right.
So like even just like along the edges, along the margins, these kinds of things could have massive ripple effects.
Yeah, well, and I mean, the Democratic vote is very heavily concentrated in cities. I mean, Georgia is kind of an extreme example, but it would be the same thing in Pennsylvania. A lot of the votes come from Philadelphia. In Michigan, a lot of the votes come from Detroit. So, I mean, that playbook would be very easy to replicate. And then the other thing specifically with Fulton County is after 2020, Georgia Republicans passed this law to make it so that they could take over the Fulton County Election Board. But there has to be some sort of investigation and some sort of credible, supposedly, malfeasance for them to justify doing that.
It was really vague, though. It was like whether or not they're underperforming in quotations.
Exactly. Yeah. So the thinking is, and this is Greg Bluestein, who's a great reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution down in Georgia, says, this seems like it's laying the predicate for MAGA Trump loyalist Republicans to take over the election board in Fulton County from the locals who normally run it. And to your point, like John Ossoff is on the ballot. He's the most vulnerable Democratic incumbent. If they screw with Fulton County, that's game over.
So some MAGA asshole bought the voting machine company. I think it was Dominion, right? Yeah. Then they went judge shopping and went to some like MAGA judge in Missouri.
Right.
And they filed something saying there's a problem with the voting machines. And that's what then gave Tulsi Gabbard the ability to go in there and seize the ballots.
Yes.
So they cooked it up from the beginning and like planned out every step here. So this is genuinely nefarious, right? Yeah. And this is, I mean, how many times has Trump said like, hey, we shouldn't even have an election? Right? He said that to the New York Times?
He said we should nationalize it. He said he regretted not having the National Guard seize the ballot boxes.
When you think about it, we shouldn't even really have an election.
Yeah.
So like he's saying it, guys, and the best predictor of future action is past action. And like we said, he tried to steal 2020. And now the only difference is he's surrounded by all sycophants.
Yes.
There's nobody in the room that's going to be like, no, let's not do that. Let's take a couple steps back here and let's reevaluate this.
He also was, in 2020, planning to use the National Guard to seize some of the voting machines and the ballots and stuff. Now he has ICE, which is very different than the National Guard. Like with the National Guard, there is some level of, I think probably, National Guardsmen have like some attachment to their duty or whatever.
Yeah,
and
civic-mindedness.
Civic-mindedness maybe, or like there's some legal hurdles there. Now you have just a completely rogue, lawless gang that's working personally for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Zero accountability to the American people. He could just deploy them to go and carry out this, the dirty work on this.
Which is what Steve Bannon is suggesting.
Yeah.
And the other part of his quote, when he said, I regret not having the National Guard seize the ballot boxes is, but I'm not sure that they would have been up to it. But guess who?
Will be
up to it.
God damn it.
The, Proud Boy, neo-Nazi ICE thugs. And we haven't even mentioned the fact that they've sued 20 to 25 states to try to obtain their voter rolls.
Right.
They threatened it in Minnesota.
They tried to blackmail Minnesota.
That's
were like, if you give us that, then we'll leave. ICE will leave if you do that.
Yeah.
Like, it's all right in front of us.
It is all right in front of us.
Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.